It's Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 32, here with my brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good, man. Happy to be back talking fights with you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we've got so much to discuss tonight. Here's a quick breakdown, guys. First, we're going to dive into the UFC 240 highlights. What a pay-per-view card that was. Max Holloway getting the win over Frankie Edgar in a very competitive 5-round contest. After that, we're moving on to the UFC Newark Preview and picks. And then my favorite section, listener questions and more. So Fight Geek, let me start off tonight's episode with the quintessential question that I ask you each week. My question for you is this. Frankie Edgar, I thought, really put on a very nice performance against Max Holloway, going all 5 rounds. How did you score the fight? The reason I ask is because the judges had it as a unanimous decision, but one judge scored it 50-45 Holloway, one scored it 48-47, and one 49-46. How did you score the fight?
Yeah, if you followed me on Twitter, Phil, you'd know that I scored the fight 50-45 the night of the fight. Now watching it again,
I have you muted, so.
No, because you don't even know how I scored the fight. So yes, I saw it 50-45 in real time. In retrospect, I think you could go back and make a small case for Frankie in a couple of those rounds, but I still think that at best that's a 49-46 fight. Thought Max looked very comfortable the whole time, in control the whole time, able to do exactly what he wanted to do the whole time. He didn't have the volume that we're used to seeing out of Max, but I think that was, and he touched on it, was more of a strategic thing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Frankie looked good. I don't think Frankie looked great. I think Frankie looks, and I'm a huge Frankie Edgar fan. Frankie Edgar's a Hall of Famer, so it's, it's hard to critique him, but he looked 37. He's just not, he doesn't have the same, attributes that he had when he was younger. For instance, he was a wrestler's the way he came up, and I always say this, as guys get older, they get further and further away from their wrestling. At this point in his career, he's having a terrible time getting people down. I think he was 0 for 8 versus Cub Swanson. I think in this fight he was 1 for 13, and the 1 was just down for a brief moment. He wasn't really able to do much in the way of damage. So yes, I thought he looked good. I picked him to go the distance and last all 5 rounds because of his grittiness, his footwork, and his striking ability. But at this point, I think it's clear that he's taken a step back, at least when it comes to the championship level. Now, am I interested in seeing him at bantamweight? Sure. What about you? What did you think?
Yeah, a lot to digest there. I thought it was a competitive fight. I also scored it 50-45, but I do think that a lot of those rounds were close, were tight. The first round and the third in particular, you could perhaps make arguments that Frankie won. Now, I don't think he won either of them.
Agreed. I agree with you on the rounds right there, but I still think like Max comes back and wins those rounds, or Max still does watching the fight, I did not think Frankie won the first round.
No, exactly. It was close each round, but there was never any doubt in my mind that Holloway was on his way to comfortably winning the fight.
One thing I will say, well, Frankie is aging. I do feel like this was the biggest and the strongest I'd seen him look. He looked very good physically, but I just think he's lost, just that millisecond of a step,
Oh, yeah. So just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, I found it curious because I thought his performance was better than I expected, at least. As you know, I picked Holloway to stop him in the third. That didn't happen. And now Frankie's talking about bantamweight. I was a little surprised by that. How do you think he's going to fare at bantamweight? That sounds like a very small Frankie Edgar.
Well, I mean, it's been rumored to be his natural weight class forever. Mark Henry's been calling for it for a very long time. So if Mark Henry is a big supporter of the idea, then there may be something to it. I think Frankie Edgar, skill-wise, matches up very well with everybody in the bantamweight division. Experience-wise, he'd be one of the most experienced guys in the bantamweight division. And it would be the first time in his career where he'd be on an even playing field physically, or maybe even have some advantages against other guys. So I think bantamweight Frankie Edgar, even at advanced age, is incredibly intriguing, and maybe 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot there.
Yeah, do you think that Frankie can get to a title shot in bantamweight? Because I have my doubts, honestly. I mean, I really
who do you see him struggling with other than? I see him struggling with a Marlon Moraes. I don't think that Aljamain Sterling would present huge problems and would be unwinnable for Frankie Edgar. I don't think guys like. I mean, give me a name. Who do you think would give Frankie huge problems there?
I question Frankie's chin at 35 more than a particular opponent. Because
what are you talking about?
As we know, the more you cut weight, the more dehydrated your brain gets, the more susceptible you are to knockdowns and knockouts.
That is true, but he also just took 130 head strikes from Max Holloway and wasn't really knocked down or in serious danger of losing that fight. So his chin is well intact. It's not like we've seen him. He's taken one stoppage loss in 30 fights?
What do you mean he wasn't in danger of losing the fight? He lost unanimous decision.
No, I mean he was never in danger of being stopped viciously. He was still defending himself intelligently the whole fight.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So he takes 130 head strikes and still is able to keep his wits about him. I think that his chin is intact 100%. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Frankie's chin looked great. I want to move on after this. I think Frankie looked great. His chin looked great. I do question his chin at 135, but, we can agree to disagree there. Last part of the fight I wanted to ask you about. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. There's a lot of speculation around Max Holloway and UFC 243. A lot of people want him to do that quick turnaround. He'd have to essentially jump right back into training camp to do the co-main event against Alexander Volkanovski, who is, of course, Australian at UFC 243. I think it's way too early. I think it's extremely inappropriate for the UFC to even half expect him to do this.
Well, the UFC hasn't even said that. That's completely a rumor. So to start going out there and saying the UFC did this and that is
the MMA mainstream media, the mainstream media is definitely pushing him to do it, and we know behind closed doors at the UFC.
I don't know. I think that sounds a little dramatic. I haven't seen him being pushed to do anything in the, what has it been, 48 hours since the fight? I don't think that's happening.
You don't think that
that's just my take.
Okay, so you think he's definitely not going to do it.
I don't think Max Holloway's being bullied into taking a fight that he isn't going to take. I listened to his post-fight press conference. He was clear about his intentions, about seeing the doctor, and then if everything's cool, coming back short. Dana didn't touch on it. Nobody from the UFC has touched on it, so it's like a Twitter rumor. I mean, until we get some
a Twitter rumor. Ariel Helwani, first of all, started his show saying he thought it was too soon, and then the whole rest of the episode said how much he wants to happen.
That's probably where the rumor came from. Ariel's show then. So whatever. I don't take much credence in that right now because no one directly involved is reporting on it. Same thing with the Conor McGregor Aldo 2 fight. Segue.
Well, that's just some
not been a remotely
garbage.
credible thing. That's just a social media rumor. We'll touch on that later.
Okay, but do you think, yes or no, that Max Holloway can come back for 243, or is it too soon?
Well, let's see when his medical tests come back. If he's cleared, then why not? And he wants to, sure. But we got to wait and see. There's steps to this, He was very clear in his press conference. Did you listen to it after the fight? Or
I did. I wasn't sure if you listened to it because Max was saying he's going to fight one more time before the end of the year. That's hardly the beginning of October, Fight Geek.
Again, you're the one putting in the particulars. Nobody involved is. You're just making up scenarios. So let's wait maybe 7 days and see what the landscape looks like, or maybe 10 days, and then you'll get an answer. But I don't think you're going to get one 48 answer at.
Mainstream MMA media wants Max to return for 243. I'm sorry if you don't like it that way. That's the facts. Mainstream MMA media is pushing for it. I think it's too soon.
Well, I want Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz 3. What does that mean? Who cares who wants it? There are things that have to happen before that can be a reality. So let's wait for those things to happen, and then let's talk about some reality. I don't feel like Max is being bullied into taking a fight. I don't think Alexander Volkanovski's online pressuring Max to take a fight.
Well, he is. Then he went on Twitter today. Alex said, let's make it happen.
Well, that's very casual call out. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see.
Okay.
I don't think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's that big of a deal. We'll wait and see what the medicals are on Max. And I think at this point, Max has shown that last year or 18 months ago, we're all worried about Max's health. Max has shown at every step of the way he's a professional, and he shows up, and he knows his body, and he knows his health. So I'll trust his decision on if he can make 244 or not.
243.
Or was it 243?
Yeah. But okay, understood. Moving on to Cyborg versus Spencer. I thought that Felicia Spencer handled herself extremely well in a unanimous decision loss to Chris Cyborg. She cut Chris early. First and foremost, what did you make of Spencer's performance and Chris's performance?
I love that fight. I thought it was a great fight all the way around. Obviously, Felicia Spencer showed quite a bit in there. Excited to see where she goes from here. You know, she's very young. She's only her 8th fight, and she takes Cyborg 3 rounds. I think it was great performance by her. I think Cyborg showed a little bit of her age right now, but I still think that she was obviously the more experienced, the more skilled fighter, and she leaned on that to, kind of pull away in the end. She also fought through some adversity with the cut on her forehead. So I thought Cyborg looked good, albeit I do feel like she's aging a tad, and I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I just don't see the steamroller I used to when I watch her. But that being said, Felicia Spencer did look excellent.
Yep, absolutely agree. What did you think of the fact that Joe Rogan's commentary throughout the fight, Joe was maintaining that he was sure that Felicia Spencer was winning the fight. He obviously has some past history personal with Cyborg. He has made some disparaging jokes about her on his show. And throughout the performance, he was sure that Felicia was winning.
Does that have anything to do with him saying that?
Well, what do you think? No, I'm just curious.
I'm just asking, are you implying that Joe Rogan was misleading fans because he had made an inappropriate comment about Cyborg in the past?
100% yes. Joe Rogan, for the first time I've ever seen ever, was saying something that he did not believe was happening. He was watching a fight and saying something he didn't believe. He chose to say it anyway.
How do you know that? How do you know he
because
didn't believe that?
Well, listen, Fight Geek, it's this simple. If you think that Spencer was winning that whole fight anyway, then you need to stop being a commentator. I mean, it's that simple, right?
Well,
so
what about the fight where Sarah Froda was on the ground versus Jillian Robertson, and he kept saying how much danger she was in, even though she was dominating the whole fight?
Well,
that one was more egregious to me than that one.
You bring up a great point, Fight Geek, and that's what I was dancing around. Joe Rogan's commentary has been slipping by the week. Is it time for him to take a step back?
You know what? We're going to get completely sidetracked on this. I'm not saying it's time for him to take a step back, but I do think that there is something to that the average MMA fan over the last 10 years specifically has... The average MMA IQ has raised among all of the fans as the sport grows. So I don't think necessarily that Joe's taking a step back as much as more people know what they're watching themselves and are identifying that maybe Joe is building a narrative or seeing something different. Again, Joe has one view of the fight similar to a judge's view, where, again, I watch it on a 55-inch TV about 4 feet away, so I get to see things that maybe he's not seen. So I don't think it's time to 86 Joe from the UFC.
All three judges scored a 30-27 Cyborg, and he was saying Felicia was winning the fight, though.
Well, he also thought that Cyborg wouldn't last 5 rounds in a 3-round fight.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So maybe his homework is slipping. I don't know. He's always been a guy who wanted. I think he's been in the past that he only wants to do pay-per-views that are in the United States. So then he goes and does this one in Canada. I don't know. Maybe he mailed it in. I know that there was more criticism of him this weekend than ever before. You know, everybody has a bad night at the office.
Yeah, very fair.
Bad day at the office.
Last question about this fight. Is Chris Cyborg going to get a deal done with the UFC to fight Nunes again? She was wearing a T-shirt after the fight that said Cyborg Nunes 2 coming January 2020. Do you see that happening, or is there no deal that's going to be made?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think she's dug her feet in the sand right here. She's talking about, principles and what she wants. And the UFC, in my opinion, is not going to go out of their way to appease her. I think Dana and the way he's worded things has already kind of opened the door for her to leave. So I still believe that Cyborg in 6 months will end up in Bellator. She wants to be respected. She should be respected. She's been in the game forever. She's one of the few females who can headline cards around the world. She should certainly be respected, and I think that Bellator will be the best spot. And I just have a feeling she'll end up there.
Okay. I think that I agree with you. I don't think a deal is going to be made with the UFC, but I think she could be going to the PFL to get that easy $1 million. Go and kill Kayla Harrison.
But PFL doesn't really appeal to her in the sense that she's a Thai style boxer who wants to use her elbows and be in the clinch and things like that. So, and she's already publicly addressed that she likes the Bellator 145-pound division, and that she's been employed by Coker. I mean, you may be right, but I just think everything lines up for Bellator. I mean, it seems like if Bellator doesn't get Chris, who would probably be one of the top 5 headliners on their roster, it'd be a big loss for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next fight?
Yep, let's keep it moving.
Okay, and we'll try to run through the rest of this card, guys. I thought UFC 240 was a fine pay-per-view, but definitely not one of the better ones of the year, so we're not going to unnecessarily go through every single fight. However, welterweight fight between Jeff Neal and Nico Price is definitely highlight-worthy. Jeff Neal scoring a TKO 2 minutes and 39 seconds into the second round over Nico the Hybrid Price. Fight Geek, what was your takeaway from Jeff Neal's performance?
I liked it. Nico Price is a tricky guy. He's rangy. He's pretty wild. I think this fight had the double knockdown.
It did.
It was a pretty cool, wild fight. I like Jeff Neal. I think he's 6-0 in the UFC right now. He's like a silent assassin type. He's really quiet, kind of stoic. And his striking is extremely explosive. I think he showed in this fight he could weather a little bit of a storm. He got hit a bit. Versus a fringe top 15 guy in Nico Price. So I think it was a great performance by him. And I think Nico Price just continues to be a fun fighter. I think he still takes too many risks to be elite, but fun fighter for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And I believe, and I could be mistaken, I believe that Jeff Neal mentioned on Ariel's show yesterday that he's interested in the winner of Platinum Mike Perry versus Vicente Luque, and I love that. I love that fight.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense both ways, and it's certainly fan-friendly. So, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, real quick, we're going to jump through some of these. Arman Sarukian defeats Olivier Aubin-Mercier via unanimous decision. I thought that fight,
that was a snooze fest.
Snooze fest.
It was, two big, strong guys, kind of canceling each other out. But
yeah. We don't need to say too much. Middleweight, Christoph Jocko defeats Marc-Andre Barriault via split decision. I know
this was even worse.
This was even worse.
A snoozer, in my opinion. Yeah, this was slow-moving.
Yeah.
Jocko seems to have a hard time with his cardio, but he is skilled and experienced. I just think he kind of outlasted Barriault.
Yep, agreed. I did have Barriault. You had Jocko, so I was annoyed because my underdog almost came through, but whatever. Didn't see anything really particularly impressive from either. Moving on, women's flyweight. Vivian Araujo defeats Alexis Davis via unanimous decision. Another snooze fest. I don't have much to say.
I thought this was pretty good because
her
striking looked amazing. Her jab and how quick of a striker she is, I think she's a really interesting addition to that division. And there's just more and more girls in that division that are interesting. I think Vivian Araujo looked good athletically. And she just was peppering her jab.
She looked okay. I mean, Alexis Davis still won a round on all three judges' scorecards.
Yeah, well, Alexis Davis is an old warhorse. I mean, she's tough.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Featherweight, Hakeem Dawodu defeats Yoshinori Hori. I think I might be mispronouncing that. Apologies.
I think it's Horier, right?
Horier. Yeah, that's right. It is. Via TKO, via head kick, 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
This was fun. I thought this was a fun fight.
Yeah.
Horier was using kind of a wild movement strategy to stay away. He was kind of stifling Dawodu early, getting in on him. I think he dropped him twice. And then, Dawodu just really kind of honed in on his technique and started marching him down. he got a little less mobile. And then obviously we all saw the head kick knockdown that they waved off. Great performance. I think Hakeem Dawodu has quite a bit of potential. So yeah, I like both of those guys. I thought that fight was a lot of fun.
Yep. Totally agree. Moving on. Gavin Tucker defeats Sungwoo Choi via rear naked choke 3 minutes and 17 seconds into the third round. I thought this was okay. You know, good submission by Tucker. But, you know, did you have anything else to say about the fight?
Yeah, no, kind of underwhelming to me. It was, you know, slower action at first, but obviously he got a good solid finish in the end. But what was his name? Choi? Man, that guy's big. He was tall.
Yeah, he really was. I was surprised he could make featherweight. That's a good point.
His legs and his kicks, I was thinking if he would have just used those legs for distance, he could have given Tucker a lot of problems. I thought his size was giving him problems for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to flyweight. This was the fight of the night, I believe. Is it Davison Figueiredo? How do you say his first name?
It's Davison.
Davison. Sorry. It's a really normal name, guys. How dare I? Davison Figueiredo defeats Alexander Pantoja via unanimous decision. What were you going to say?
This fight was awesome. I mean, I think that Figueiredo's the new John Lineker. You know, he just comes in and he's kind of got both of his fists wide. He likes to throw those one-shot hooks on the return. Just an awesome fight. Pantoja's super tough. You could even see to the end he was taking a beating, taking heavy shots, but was still coming forward and still had his fighting spirit the whole time. Loved that fight. Big fan of both guys, but huge fan of Figueiredo. Can't wait to see what's next for him. Possible interim title fight. I think he lost his last fight before this one, so that'd be really hard to push him in that. But yeah, it's certainly top of the food chain when it comes to the flyweights.
Yeah, I agree. Here's my guess, by the way, on what happens to Figueiredo next. I think that Henry Cejudo is going to come back the beginning of next year. He's going to have some kind of talk with Dana where he's basically going to say, look, Dana, I don't want to cut back down to 125. There's a big line at bantamweight. I'm looking at it. I think that Cejudo very much wants to go for that featherweight title at some point, as ridiculous as that sounds. I think Cejudo's going to drop that 125-pound belt. They're going to make Joey B versus Figueiredo for the flyweight belt. You heard it here first. What do you think of that?
Well, like I said, he just lost, though, so there may be a couple guys with, you know, better cases ahead of him. I don't know that he gets that fight right away.
Who has a better case?
I'd like to
Who has a better case than him?
Off the top of my head, look at the flyweight top three. I think he's fourth, right?
Yeah, no, Pantoja, who he just beat, Formiga, and Benavidez. And then Cejudo, of course.
And so did Formiga just beat him?
I believe Formiga just lost, right? To Joey B.
Who was Figueiredo's last loss? I'm sorry.
That I have to look up. This is why we need an assistant.
This is true.
But this could be, yeah, it very well might be Formiga. But Formiga just lost, so it doesn't matter.
We can't give a guy a...
Yeah, Formiga was his last fight. He lost unanimous decision, yes.
So you can give him a title shot, an interim title shot when Formiga just beat him in his last fight before this one.
I'm not saying give him an interim title. I'm saying give him a full title shot because I don't think Cejudo's coming back.
Well, that'd be interesting. I can't wait to see how the Cejudo situation ends up playing out.
Yeah, absolutely.
For both divisions, because now we got Uriah Faber floating back around too, which I'm sure name-wise is his biggest fight.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, moving on. Let's try to finish up UFC 240. Jillian Robertson defeats Sarah Frota via TKO elbows, 4 minutes and 13 seconds into round number 2. We both called this one. Jillian Robertson, looking good, right? What's next for her? Flyweight. She's looking hot.
Yeah, she's looking great. Actually, I believe, and this could just be a rumor, before I hopped on here, I think they're teasing her versus Macy Barber, which I love.
Ooh, I love that fight.
That'd be an amazing fight. I picked Jillian Robertson here. I've been super impressed with her. I mention ATT every single chance I get because I'm just the kind of fighters they produce and the coaching over there is just amazing. So you have I think she's only 22. She's being trained by Dean Thomas over at ATT. So she's only going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last fight on the card, Eric Koch defeats Kyle Stewart via unanimous decision. I did not choose this correctly. I believe you did. Eric looked great. What did you take?
Come on, Phil. You know I picked this one, right? You know, because I picked the whole card right. 12-0.
Let's all get it out. I was waiting for you to say that, Fight Geek. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Fight Geek got the whole card right on his predictions. Yay!
Hey, even a broke clock's right once a day, right?
You know what's so
Twice
annoying, guys? You know what's so annoying is the Thompson versus Pettis card. I went 11 for 12. Granted, not perfect, but I the only one I got wrong was the main event, right? I chose Wonder Boy for some reason. And we didn't do an episode the next week. This was before we were weekly, so I didn't get to brag about it. But now Fight Geek gets to brag about his.
It was on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
It was on purpose.
It feels like it was on purpose.
Yeah, Eric Koch ballooned up to 170, comeback fight. Looked pretty good. Solid win. I don't see him, contending at the top of that class. He's a little small. His reach is short. But it was a good comeback win for him. So, yeah, a good fight for Eric Koch.
All right. Okay, so with that, are we ready to move on to UFC Newark Covington versus Lawler?
Let's do it.
Okay, all right. So we'll go ahead and switch off picks here. I will let you choose the main event. We've got Colby Chaos Covington versus Ruthless Robbie Lawler. Welterweight main event, 5 rounds. Who you got, baby?
Well, going with the Ruthless one. Robbie Lawler in this one.
Really?
I am. I think that Colby's barking up the wrong tree here. I know Colby has the pressure and Colby has the pace and the wrestling. But I liked the way Robbie looked before that somewhat controversial finish to Ben. He looked in shape, he looked focused, and he actually clocked Ben right away. I'm expecting him to come out. I'm not sure that Colby has faced a striker with the power of Robbie Lawler. Actually, I'm positive he hasn't. So I'm expecting a sharp Robbie Lawler to come out, close the distance, and hit him with something upside his head early, get Colby seriously thinking and in a defensive mindset, and then I see Robbie taking him out in the 3rd round via TKO.
Wow. Okay, I was not expecting that pick. All right. Okay, well, I disagree with you. I think Colby Covington, as much as I dislike the guy, is going to outclass Robbie Lawler over a 5-round period. I think he's going to grind to that unanimous decision victory. I see this looking somewhat similar to Covington versus RDA. But I do think Covington is going to grind out a unanimous decision victory. As much as I hate to say it, I really don't like Covington, but I see him getting the W here. All right.
He's been out an extended amount of time, though, right?
No doubt.
Do you see ring rust playing a factor in this fight at all?
I'm not a big believer in ring rust in the first place.
Well, Colby doesn't have a ton of mat time anyways. He's only got like 15 fights, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
against
true.
Top-level guys, he's had what? In all honesty, Colby Covington has maybe had 3 training camps for guys of this level, right? I mean, he's fought RDA. Off the top of my head, I mean, the Brian Barbarinas of the world it's a little different than preparing for Robbie Lawler. So, I mean, Colby Covington hasn't prepared for elite competition that many times. That being said, he does come from ATT, who I was just singing their praises, so I'm sure he'll be ready. But I think Colby's experience, especially at the high level, is overlooked a lot. He hasn't proven it that many times.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, there's a flip side of looking at that, right? You could say he doesn't have enough experience, doesn't have enough mat time. At the same time, he's got a chin that hasn't been worn out, so he can take those big Lawler punches perhaps better than a vet, let's say. Might take.
Right, but he's never been. I mean, we haven't seen him in much trouble yet. What happens when he gets clipped and he's in there versus a finisher? And if it happens, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, he got clipped hard against RDA a few times and ate those. But you're right, not the same.
Yes, but RDA is not a one-shot stun you puncher. He's more of a combination puncher. Where Robbie Lawler's the guy who will hit you on a return, and all of a sudden your mindset will be changed.
Yep, absolutely.
You start taking steps backwards.
It's going to be a fascinating fight, a fascinating main event. Moving on to Jim Miller versus Clay Guida. Whew, this one was hard for me to pick. I did not like picking this fight.
Yeah, I didn't like this one either. Literally could go either way.
I know. Do not bet on this, guys. I do have Jim Miller by unanimous decision, but I don't feel great about it. What about you?
I've got Clay Guida via split decision, and I just see it grinding. I think that Clay Guida's got a tiny bit more juice left than Jim Miller when it comes to output, and I just think he'll outwork him just a little bit, and I think Clay Guida will come away with a split decision.
All right. We've been disagreeing so far. So moving on to another lightweight fight, Joaquim Silva versus Nadrat Hakparast. Who you got in this one?
I am going to go with the Kelvin Gastelum doppelganger, Nasrat Hakparast.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, I like this guy. He's looked good in his build up. You know, he's a good striker. He's a strong kid, so I'm leaning him in this one.
Yep, me as well. And then we've got Trevin Giles versus Gerald Mearshart. Who you got there?
I'm taking Trevin Giles in this one. And he was looking – I liked what I saw at him in his last fight, even though he lost. And I just expect him to land something heavy on Mearshart.
I also have Trevin Giles. I've got him winning via stoppage in the third round. So moving on. Scott Holtzman versus Dong Hyun Ma, lightweight. I know this fight's been keeping you up at night.
I put a lot of time into this fight.
I know.
Finally landed on Scott Holtzman by unanimous decision, using his wrestling.
Darn it. That's what I've got as well. Holtzman by unanimous decision. Moving on, light heavyweight fight to round out the main card. Darko Stosic versus Kennedy Zenchukwu.
Very nice, Phil. This is an interesting matchup. I think it's one of the more interesting matchups you got. Is it Darko Stosic?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
He's only 6 foot 205, but he's got a lot more experience going against Kennedy, who's 6'5", has a lot of physical tools. So this is an intriguing matchup. I'm going to go with the shorter guy getting on the inside against the less experienced guy. I'm going to take Darko Stosic here.
Okay. I actually am going to go with Kennedy Zenchukwu. I've got him winning a unanimous decision over Stosic. Moving on, and we're going to do these prelims real fast. Mickey Gall versus Salim Touati. Touati, I think. How do you pronounce? Who you got?
I think it's Touhari, isn't it?
Touahri.
Let's not do this again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take Mickey Gall here. I think the UFC is doing everything they can to get Mickey Gall back on track here.
Clearly, he's facing Salim Touhari.
Well, I believe he was on a couple seasons ago of The Ultimate Fighter, so this kid has a little bit of potential as well, but I really think they're like pumping the brakes on Mickey Gall, who's only 5-2, and saying, let's build this kid back up, because Mickey Gall was a very marketable guy, but I just don't think he was ready for some of the matchups they put him in.
Yeah. Okay, I also have Mickey Gall in this. Women's flyweight, Antonina Shevchenko versus Lucy Pudilova. I have Antonina Shevchenko winning. Pudilova is a very hard out at women's flyweight, but I don't see Antonina losing twice in a row. She recently lost to, I believe, Roxanne Modafferi. I see her pulling out a split decision.
Yes, I see the same thing. I'll go unanimous decision. I think she'll right some of her wrongs. I think she'll be more aggressive, and I think she'll outpoint her pretty easily.
Okay, all right, let's try to run through the rest of this card. Jordan Espinoza versus Matt Schnell. Who you got?
Matt Schnell.
Okay, I do as well. Lauren Murphy versus Marta Romero Borella. Women's flyweight. Who you got?
Lauren Murphy.
Oh, I got Romero Borella. Okay, welterweight. Claudio Silva versus Cole Williams. Who you got?
Claudio Silva.
So do I. Women's flyweight, Miranda Granger versus Hannah Goldie. I've got Goldie. Oh, I said it first. Who you got?
I've got Miranda Granger. Is that
all right?
Same girl?
We disagree. I
said you're gonna lose that one.
Okay, all right.
I feel confident in that one.
All right. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break and then be right back with listener questions. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 32. Here for my favorite section, the listener questions.
Very nice. Let's get into them. I've got one right here. We had a couple come via Instagram this time, so I'm going to go ahead and call those ones out. At @PamDora_box, BOXX asks, what's next for Colby when he wins on Saturday night? Does Dana deny him a title shot because he's still being petty? If Colby wins, do you think he gets that shot next?
Yeah, what a great question. 3 weeks ago, I would have said, I tweeted this, about 3 weeks ago. I said, if Colby wins, they're giving it to Jorge Masvidal. If Lawler wins, they're going to give it to Lawler. But man, I just don't know anymore. It doesn't really feel like Dana's on board the Masvidal Express. He's certainly not all aboard the Leon Edwards Express. So I'm kind of leaning on, yes, if Colby wins, he will get that title shot. What do you think?
I think so. If Colby wins this one, he certainly will. So
yes, of that we agree. Okay, so this is from Kenneth Robert. That's at Mr_Tiddlewinks. He said, do you guys believe BJ Penn will retire after this next fight, or will he try to fight somewhere else?
Oh, yikes. BJ Penn, huh? I hope he retires, and I do actually think, especially with kind of like the public shaming of his name, that this will probably be the last hurrah for BJ Penn. I mean, I think it was, less than 6 weeks ago he was wrestling a bouncer on TMZ or something. So I really think this is the last hurrah for BJ Penn. I don't see it going well for him, and I think he's going to lay his gloves down. What happens next after that, God only knows.
But is he going to try to fight in another promotion is the question.
I don't think so. I don't think that if he's on an 8-fight losing streak in the UFC, he's going to be commissionable anywhere, right? I don't know.
Okay, I think that BJ Penn will absolutely continue his fighting career after this fight. I know that he told Dana White this would be his last fight. I do not believe him for a second. I think he'll stop, fighting in the UFC, obviously. He'll go fight somewhere else. For many
so where do you
fights.
see him fighting next?
Combate Americas. I'm not, Combate Americas. Look what happened with
I could see
Tito.
BJ going over and doing like bare knuckle or something. So yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably wrong here.
I mean, he's already 14-16 or 16-14. I feel like he's trying to get a losing record before he's done.
It's going to be the inevitable BJ Penn versus Artem Lobov bare knuckle championship fight in 2 years. Watch.
And just watch. Here's what will be the most depressing part of that, okay? Artem will win.
I mean, that goes without saying at this point.
Okay, all right.
I don't think BJ Penn's going to be winning any more fights at the elite level, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Keep booking him.
Yeah, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I have another Instagram question right here from DJ_double_drop. He says, does Robbie beat him in round 1, or does he drag it out and make it as painful as possible and wreck him up and down for 25 minutes? Well, my prediction was that Robbie will catch him, put him on his back foot, not allow him to institute his pace, and then finish him in the 3rd round. So That's what I see happening. That's my answer to the question. You see Colby winning a long decision, right? So obviously you don't see that happening.
Yeah, exactly. We do disagree there, but hopefully Colby loses. I want to be on record saying I'm rooting for Colby to lose. I don't like him at all. But moving on to Mr. Jim Assoon, one of our favorite all-time listeners. This is at Jim_Assoon, ASSOUN. He said, if, God forbid, Khabib or Dustin gets injured, do you think Dana will put Conor ahead of Tony as a replacement fighter for UFC 242? Go ahead, Fight Geek.
No, I do not. I think Tony would step in on short notice there.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't believe for half a second that Conor would take a last-minute fight, nor would the UFC want that, because that would hurt their marketing draw of McGregor. So
right, and when Conor comes back, even though he wasn't real fond of doing all the media last time, they're going to want to build it. I mean,
right.
Conor hasn't technically fought in the ESPN era, right?
Right.
So ESPN hasn't had a chance to show Conor's face up and down their network, which is something I'm sure they would love to do at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is a question with Fighting With Myself podcast. That's Juice. What's up, Juice? He said, what fighter would you most like to see fight for a belt in 2019? And my answer, this is a bit difficult, but it's also very obvious, is Mr. Tony Ferguson for the lightweight belt.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. And then, I mean, Tony Ferguson needs to fight for a title. It just needs to happen.
Yeah. Do you have a question, or should I go next?
I got another one here from Wheel Kick MMA, at Wheel Kick MMA. He says 3 champions have seemingly created an impasse in the belt in their divisions: Valentina, Amanda, and John. Arguably, Max is the 4th on this list. Of these 3 champions, which do you believe will be the first to lose a fight in the future? I think you had a similar poll to this, correct?
Yeah, I did. That's funny.
I think there was different options, though. So out of Valentina, Amanda, John, and Max, who do you see losing first?
Yeah.
Was those the same options as your poll?
No, they weren't. These are easier. I definitely see Max losing first. Max could lose as soon as his next title defense against Volkanovski, especially if he is bullied into defending in Australia at 243, which would be ridiculous. I get that people are upset that he fought Frankie Edgar for no reason. Talk to Dana about that worthless title fight. But there's no reason to force Max back against a killer like Volk.
Well, people need to understand Ali's the matchmaker in the UFC, apparently. So, I mean, that's why Frankie got that title shot.
It really makes you wonder, what does he have on Dana? It's got to be something real big. Real big. But who knows?
Well, why can't Justin Gaethje get a good fight then?
I don't know. Good question. All right, and then this is from at reusable shoe. Did you see the rumors churning about Conor versus Aldo 2 at lightweight? Do you think there's any validity to them being the main event of UFC 244? If it happens, who you got? First and foremost,
I believe this rumor was started by an account called Craven Moorhead, first of all. Second of all, this is a complete Twitter rumor as far as I'm concerned.
Twitter rumor. Complete.
Right. And it's spread like wildfire, I believe. I mean, don't get me wrong. If Conor and Aldo fought again, everyone's down. Everybody's down. But I don't think there's a speck of truth to it. I think it's just something that caught wildfire and everybody wanted to see. That being said, Conor coming back to fight Aldo would be the most Conor thing possible to do. It's the most winnable fight in his mind available to him. So that would be the most Conor fight ever, in my opinion.
The fight makes no sense, though, Fight Geek, because
that's why it's the most Conor ever, because he can come back and say he killed the greatest featherweight champion of all time twice. He doesn't even care. We made this up. Nobody else made this stuff up. So
we didn't make it up. Craven Moorhead made it up.
Craven Moorhead is craving a second fight with Aldo, and McGregor. I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it's happening, but obviously, we would all take it on UFC 244 at Madison Square Garden. I would pay for that a million times over. Yes, please.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, this is from Nathan at N_Web1212. Is this fight more of a bad matchup for Colby or more of a bad matchup for Robbie Lawler? Go.
My brain says it's a bad matchup for Colby, but
yeah,
again,
we're going to disagree on this again.
Yeah. You know, Colby is... Do you think Colby is a better wrestler than Askren, or does he just push a better pace?
He pushes the pace better, and I think he might be stronger.
One thing about Robbie, though, is he can go 5 rounds. He's gone 5 rounds forever versus everybody. So it's not like I'm overly worried about Robbie getting pushed at a pace he can't keep. For instance, we've seen Tony Ferguson tire out Dos Anjos. We've seen Dos Anjos get tired in fights before, even though he has a great gas tank. I don't think we've seen a lot of fights where we're like, oh, Robbie Lawler from the 3rd, 4th round on is just completely gassed and not defending himself. He's not that type of fighter. He's been in 5 rounders. So I think it's kind of a little disrespectful to act like Colby's going to come in there and push Robbie Lawler around right from the jump. Again, it's the most powerful counterpuncher Colby's ever fought, and Colby guaranteed has pissed him off with all the stuff he's saying. So with all of that, it's kind of a cocktail where I think it's just a bad combination for Colby this one time, even though on paper it may not look that way. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to Gigsy G18. This is at Gigsy YG18. What do you think of Max's chances against Volkanovski? Can Volkanovski dethrone him? What are the chances of that? Why don't you go first?
I think it's like a 70-30 in Max's favor, in my opinion. Max Holloway has clearly established that he has his own style. He's his own champion. He's a defending champion. So, of course, Max could win. I mean, I think Volkanovski's a hell of a challenger, and I do think he has a few ways to win, but who's to say that Max doesn't get in there and get loose and just put 150 head strikes on Volkanovski also? Even though Max took a lot of punishment from a big guy in Poirier, he still landed over 100 head strikes. So Max is in there with offense no matter what. I'm not sure that Volkanovski's fought a lot of guys like Max Holloway, so there's always that yin and yang to like matchups like that. With that being said, yeah, I would favor Max Holloway, but Volkanovski absolutely could win that fight. That's what makes it an amazing fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think I even agree with the 70-30 percentage. The thing is, I think that 70-30 shifts to Volkanovski's favor if they force Max to come back at UFC 243 in Volk's backyard. That would also mean that Max has now would have to fight 4 times in 11 months, I believe, which is extremely heavy schedule for a champion, almost ridiculous.
Agreed. That would be too much, and the fact that why Max doesn't have to take a road game as the defending champ. Honestly,
you'll have to tell Dana that in the UFC because he's getting bullied badly into this 243 fight.
Don't they want to put Hooker versus Iaquinta as the co-main on that? So it's not like they're desperate to put that. They don't need Max versus Volkanovski on that card.
The main headline on MMA Junkie as of 20 minutes ago is Hooker saying that Al Iaquinta does not want the fight and has turned it down. Which is a little bit of Al's MO, let's be honest. Al loves
He could just be posturing or whatever. We'll just see how it plays out.
I will just say...
fight there. That was a perfect fight for Comey.
It was a perfect fight, but Al loves nothing more than agreeing to fights and then backing out. You'll remember he did that against Gaethje. Now he's doing it with Hooker. So
more questions. What do we got here? You got one queued up?
You're the one who interrupted me as I'm bashing Al Iaquinta for backing out of fights left and right. Sorry, guys. Exactly. He backs out of fights nonstop. Sorry.
All right. I got this one from Chris Genghis Black at Puba Pitt. He says, who y'all got between Weidman and Reyes and why? Also, what's next for Cain Velasquez? Two great questions. So go ahead. I'll give you this one. Who do you got between Weidman and Reyes, your favorite 205er?
Yeah, I know that everyone's thinking that I'm going to take this time to bash Reyes, and to everyone who thinks that, you're right. I am going to bash Reyes. He didn't really win his fight against Volkan. That was a bad robbery. He looked like crap, but he does have a good chance to beat Chris Weidman. Weidman's obviously a huge question mark at 205. We saw how Luke Rockhold, who beat Weidman for the belt at middleweight, looked at 205. He got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. So this could be a tough one for Weidman. Having said that, I don't know why. It's a gut feeling. I see Weidman pulling this one out via, ready, submission at the end of the second, somehow, some way.
Wow, I'm not ready to go that deep into the breakdown. I would say Reyes. I think Weidman has been stopped 4 of his last 5 fights, and the one that he won versus Kelvin, I believe he was knocked down and almost finished at the end of the first round. So a guy who hits as hard as Reyes, who has great feet, he can move around, he's mobile. Chris is already slow at 185. I don't think he's going to get a lot quicker at 205, but I still would give the quickness, size, and length advantage to Reyes. So I'd take Reyes here.
Okay, very fair.
What's next for Cain Velasquez? You got any thoughts on Cain? I know he's doing some wrestling right now.
I was just going to say, I think he's doing some wrestling, and I think that, honestly, I'm as a Cain Velasquez fan, I would love nothing more than to see him hang him up and retire. That might be hard for some people to stomach. That's just if you care about his legacy, would like to see him retire. He isn't going to be doing any big things going forward.
Yeah, he feels retired to me already. We get so little of Cain that it's like he's felt retired since the end of his last title run. Since he had a fight canceled for his lower back that he mentioned in the media, and he's been basically a ghost since that. His fight versus Francis was 20 seconds. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of time has passed him by. I'd like to see him come back and give it another go because he was so great, but maybe that's just not in the cards. He is actually getting up there in age.
Yeah, and I'd hate to see him pull a BJ Penn where he just lights his legacy on fire with a match. You know what I mean? There's no need for that.
Well, he'd have to fight like 4 years and not win another fight. I don't think that's happened.
True.
Okay. Here we go. Here's one from JC at Dubbed JC. He says, you will live the rest of your life on a desert island. You can bring 3 belongings. Name them.
UFC 1, UFC 2, and a DVD player. I don't know. I saw that question. I don't know, man. I don't know. Sorry, JC. I'll think of better answers and get back to you.
Definitely got to take a buck knife. For sure.
We're losing listeners by the millisecond.
All right, sorry, JC. You went too far out the box here. Okay. Ari Abraham asks, at allergic to bitch, excuse the language, after Whitaker and Izzy, who gets the next shot if Whitaker wins? Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that question. I actually really like that question. So my answer is Jack Hermansson, who got totally screwed having to take this, UFC Copenhagen main event against Jared Cannonier. It should have been Gastelum.
He's got to get through that fight, right?
Oh, you're right. We shouldn't. He's got to get through Jared Cannonier. We better slow down the car here. Let's pump the brakes.
I would actually say the winner of Romero versus Costa, if that fight ever happens.
Romero is 0-2. He's got to do a little bit more. He's 0-2 against Whitaker.
0-2? That last fight is razor close. I mean,
it doesn't matter. He's 0-2. He's 0-2. I'm okay with it.
So what if he comes out and knocks out Costa in 45 seconds? Then you don't think he's gonna?
Then fight the winner. Then fight the winner of Hermansson versus Cannonier.
You want to do that to your boy Jack when he's got a nice little surge? You want to give him Yoel before he gets to a title shot?
Hey, I'm done questioning Hermansson.
You'd be killing off another contender for no reason in that situation, in my opinion.
Well, then do Hermansson first and then do the Romero 3 fight after. Okay. All right.
Okay. I got one here from Jacob Powers, at Jacob Powers 2. He said if you had to pick 3 fighters that go from relatively unknown to stars in the next year, who would it be? Go ahead.
Yeah, geez, these are really hard. I mean, I'm gonna say, look.
Define star, though.
I know. I mean, we can't go superstar. That's too hard.
Yeah, there's only been like 10 superstars in the history of the UFC.
Sorry, but I'm going to go with 2 easy choices in light heavyweight. I'm going to say Johnny Walker and Alexander Rakic. Sorry. So those 2. And then I'm going to say Alexander Volkanovski. Even if he loses against Max, he's going to be a new star, and he's going to be around for a while. So those are my 3.
Man, this is just too hard. Obviously, I'm always high on Macy Barber. I think Macy Barber may not be a year, maybe a little longer, but I certainly think she will be in that mix. Peter Yan, I think I mentioned him every episode. He's creeping closer and closer to a title shot. I think once he finally gets to that top tier and starts fighting big names, we'll really see who he is and love his style. And let's go with... Man, I'm drawing a blank. Let's go with, I think Hakeem Dawodu has quite a bit of potential with his look, his striking style, and he has kind of a mean kind of attitude. So depending on who he gets matched up with, he could be a guy who is interesting to watch.
Okay, real quick. I think this is my last question. This is from Pat Tobin. That's at Pat_Tobin. If you were an elite fighter, which head coach would you want to work with the most and why? I love that question, Pat. And my answer is Mark Montoya of Factory X, the coach of Anthony Lionheart Smith. And I think that in between rounds, Montoya he's just an extremely intelligent coach. He gives extremely intelligent game planning and, makes sure that his fighters make appropriate and smart adjustments, keeps them calm during the rounds. And I think he's extremely underrated. So I'm going to go with Mark Montoya of Factory X.
That's a very good pick. I mean, this is hard. I have like 3 that I really like, 2 specifically. I don't know if Jason Perillo is considered a head coach. I know he's a striking coach to many people. But I love Jason Perillo. He's just California cool. He's very calm. He knows how to adapt to different fighters and speak to different fighters. He's had success with multiple fighters. He's pretty selective with the high-end fighters he works with, but all of the ones he does seem to elevate fairly quickly. And if he doesn't count as a head coach, I would say Trevor Whitman. Trevor Whitman is just amazing. Rose Namajunas, Justin Gaethje. He's employed by the UFC breaking down analysis between rounds. I think Trevor Whitman has an amazing striking system and just understands the game and the philosophy very well.
There you have it. Okay, now is that all the questions for tonight?
That's going to do it for this episode.
Okay, all right. Before I hand it off to Fight Geek, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, if you want, you can hop onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review. I would never ask for that, of course, but if you feel so inclined, it really does help us out. With that, Fight Geek, take us away, baby.
All right, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude, We're at Split_podcast. That's 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.